Okay, start by getting your work knife. This one has the gold handle, but it is a work blade. It's not a sharp, nice zirconium blade. But it does need to be clean and have a good edge. Now once this is rolled out into this long line here, kind of like how we were making chain, you're going to take just the smallest little bit, okay? You're going to want to get most of that excess oil off, okay? Just enough so that it doesn't stick to the blade. And make sure, again, that you don't have a lot of oil on your fingers. Now, you see how tiny that is? Pull it off, set your knife to the side, make sure your hands are clean, and just roll it into a tiny little ball. Okay? Let me show you how small that is. Tiny. Okay? Then you're going to get your sculpting brush. Again, I'm going to use the little workhorse, the soft chisel tip. You're going to put that just on the tip of it right there. And the reason I like the chisel tip is because it'll hold stuff without falling off. Pick your spot. I'm just going to do one right here, for example. Make sure that it's nice and even, it's centered where you want it. At this point, lick your brush, don't put oil on it necessarily if you're going to, because you may add more studs on top of this one, and if you use oil, it's not going to stick. Best to just lick your brush or maybe a little bit of water, unless you're not going to put anything on top, and then oil is fine. But you don't want this really fresh green stuff to stick to your rubber tip brush, or to your pusher. Okay, and there we have it. There's a stud. All right, now the key points to doing this correctly is you need to use fresh green stuff. You need to really control your oil. Roll it into a small ball. Use less than you think you're going to. Okay, use a flat rubber brush. Stick that on there just like that. Now once you have a couple of them in place, you can start to manage the size of the studs. Okay, if one of them looks bigger than the other, you need to change that. You can do that by going around with your brush and just putting the flat of your brush against the model like this, and just skirt the edges. Tidy up those corners if there's any, make them nice and round. You can also gather in the material and make the stud smaller. If you want to make the stud round, you're going to take again a little bit of epoxy. I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger just so you can see it a little easier on the camera. Okay, it's just that big, really tiny. Put it on the flat right there of your brush. Let's do it prominently here in the center. Not because I'm going to keep it here. These are flat studs, so I'm going to break this off for the actual sculpt, but just for educational purposes. Say we want rounded studs. Okay. With rounded studs, it's even more important to use really fresh green stuff. If you're using old or cured green stuff, it's really not going to stick. Here's the thing is, if you press down on a stud to make sure that it sticks, it's also going to flatten it, right? So the only real anchoring this one is going to have is going to be on the outside. So you take your brush and you're just going to kind of push it around a little bit back and forth evenly on all sides, and hopefully shifting it back and forth, it will grab around the outsides of that stud. It'll grab the plastic. Okay, remember that this is a really careful process, and if you're not careful later, you can bump that and it'll snap it right off, which is kind of a bummer, right, after all that work. Okay, so this one is pretty pronounced. I don't personally like it, but some people request that the studs be round balls. It's got that kind of the heresy look. This one you could probably flatten just a little bit, and then if you can see, we'll give you a good angle here. What we're going to do is put our brush to the side and kind of cone it back up. Just like that. So give that a try, guys. Play around with it, whatever kind of shape of stud you prefer. We have some flat ones here. You can see the prominence of the round one there. Again, I like the flat ones. I think they look a little bit more contoured. But, you know, if you like the round ones, then they're not that much more difficult to do.